afternoon, Sam. Here we are again.
Hi, Kate. How are you feeling this week? Excited?
Yeah, really good, thanks. Yeah. And
That's
I love the article that you sent me this week that you thought could be a good discussion topic. And yeah, the topic of this article is male and female entrepreneurs get asked different questions by venture capitalists, and it affects how much funding they get. And I thought it was really worthwhile discussing because there's so many things in there that we could unpack just about business in general, um, that flows into all aspects of life.
It does. Yes.
Mm.
I think the thing that hit me first and foremost about this article, Kate, was the gender bias.
Mm.
And we've all heard about gender bias, and
Mhm.
sometimes we're not conscious of it. But when I saw this article, I just thought this is so blatantly obvious when you see it all laid out in front of you like this.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's the power of this article. It's so, for the listeners, it's in the Harvard Business Review, and it was quite an extensive study. And it was actually published back in 2017, so it's not new. But so, it's 6 years old, but the problem still remains the same. So it outlines how, obviously we've known for a while now that there's a big gender gap when it comes to venture capital funding for startups. So female entrepreneurs currently receive about 3% of all venture funding worldwide, despite female business ownership being up between 30 and 40% of all businesses. So it's not that, women aren't running businesses, it's that they're not able to attract funding like the men are. And so this has been, a well-known phenomenon. And previously they thought it must be because there's no female venture capitalists. So the venture capitalists obviously being the ones that provide the funding, the majority of venture capitalists have been men. And so they have a name for it, homility, which means you seek to give your money to people who look like you because you can trust that person's going to use the money well. So for a male investor to sit there with his money in his pocket and be looking at pitches from males and females, he's naturally going to be drawn to the males because it's familiar, it feels safe to him. He hasn't bet on a woman before and has seen that return on investment, so it feels like a risk, even though the numbers show it's actually not. And females, when they've done the statistical research, females deliver a 2 times higher return on investment than men. So it's totally not, it's not true that women can't be trusted with startup funding. They actually deliver a better return on investment, but it's still that unconscious bias or that lack of familiarity with female startup founders that is causing men to, or investors across the board. That was the interesting thing about this article. So they thought, okay, the way to get around this is to get more females into becoming venture capitalists. And so if you've got more females with money to fund startups, then you'll get more funding for women. But that did not turn out to be the case because even the female venture capitalists were asking the women different questions. And what this article highlights is that it's not actually we need more female venture capitalists because they'll then spend more on female founders. That has not turned out to be the case because even female venture capitalists are gender biased against women. So that's what I found fascinating. And so they did this study. It was huge. They did something like they measured, was it 140 prominent venture capitalists? 40 of them were female. And they sat in on all the pitch presentations and, and then they realized that it came down to the way the investors pitched the questions. So it was this promotion focus versus prevention focus, right? And you just went and looked into the research behind that, and that's fascinating in itself.
Absolutely. And Kate, I'd love to go through, in this article, they have a little table of the 2 different types of questions that were asked. And I'd love to go through these together and let's have a little chat about them.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
there's two types of questions, the promotion and the prevention. What they discovered was that men were predominantly asked promotional type questions and the women were asked preventative or prevention type questions.
Mm-hmm.
So the first question in this table is on the topic of customers. So the promotion question, as an example, is how do you want to acquire customers?
Mm-hmm.
But the prevention question is how many daily and monthly active users do you have? These are vastly different questions, Kate.
Mm. Yeah. One's about what the potential for the business and the vision. The other is about what have you got now, and we'll see whether it's enough to decide whether you're worthy. Sort of.
Exactly. The next question is about your income. So the promotion question is how do you plan to monetize this? And the prevention question is how long will it take you to break even? These are entirely different focuses when it comes to income in a business.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the promotion question is all about projecting to the future. What is the plan here? What do you foresee here? And the prevention question is just, when are you going to break even?
Yeah, it's almost like offensive versus defensive. It's like playing a soccer match, isn't it? So you either go in offensively, attacking and looking forward, or you go in defensively, trying to field all the challenges coming your way. And so this natural these questions either put you in an offense in a positive offensive position, or they put you in a defensive position. And what it does then, it puts them in the offensive, and the women, it puts them in a defensive. So they're having to justify and prove that they have a break-even strategy, whereas the men, it's looking forward, how are you planning to monetize this, so they can talk about all the options they have and so on, rather than how long is it going to take you to break even. That's sort of putting you in a defensive position.
Yeah. I think that this market question, I think this is the most hideous comparison out of all of them in this list. The promotion question is, do you think your target market is a growing one?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the prevention question, bearing in mind, this is what the majority of the women were asked, is it a defensible business wherein other people can't come into the space to take share? Now, let me ask you this. When you think about the industries in which women start businesses, and the majority of them are things like coaching, health and wellness, any kind of administration, like, virtual assistants, things like that. Any type of business like that where the majority of the market is female, and a lot of those markets, they're pretty crowded. There are not a lot of new spaces in those markets. So how on earth are you supposed to answer that question? Where do you think other people can't come into your space? That's almost an impossible question to say no to.
Yeah, you name one business that has complete market domination without any competition. It doesn't exist unless,
No. You're basically asking the women, do they think they have a unicorn business?
Mm. And we all know that competitor research is just a necessary part of doing business, because we all have competitors. There's no business out there that is devoid of competitors. So that's a really unfair question. And the first one that you asked around promotion, that's just a yes or no answer.
Yeah. Do you think your target market is growing?
Yeah,
oh
yes.
My goodness.
Of course they're going to say yes. And then I think let's keep working through them, then we'll analyse. There was two more, wasn't there?
Yeah, so the next one is on projections of the business. So the promotion question is, what major milestones are you targeting for this year? And the prevention question is, how predictable are your future cash flows? Again, oh my goodness, it's almost as if they are setting women up to fail with these questions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and even the female venture capitalists are asking these questions. It's not just the men. Yeah.
Mm,
So
mm.
there's this unconscious bias there that's saying, I need to ask women risk focus, defensive focus questions because I don't trust they have what it takes. I need them to defend their position. But for the men, it's
Yeah.
like, oh, tell us about your goals and aspirations and all the good things you're going to do. We implicitly trust
Yes.
you because you're male. So just tell us all the good stuff. You don't need to defend your position, Yeah. So there's two more, isn't there? Yeah.
Well, I want to jump to the last one actually because it's on management. So the promotion question was, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? And the prevention question was, how much of this are you actually doing in-house?
Mm. Yeah.
To
So even
me, that just sounds like, oh, I don't want to invest in this. If you're planning on doing all of this yourself, I don't think this is going to be that. To me, that's how that question comes across. I don't think you're capable if you're doing it all yourself. I don't think you can do it.
Yeah, even the word actually there's something about the word, how much of this are you actually doing in-house? Um, and the difference between that question and can you tell us a bit about yourself? So all the promotion questions are open-ended, positively focused questions that stimulate the startup person to talk about the vision, the positive, side of the business. All the prevention questions that were aimed at the women were all around managing risk and what are you going to do to defend all the odds coming your way. And what the study interestingly showed was that women then went on to attract less than half the funding that males did. The difference in questioning, it says here, appears to have substantial funding consequences for startups. When they examined comparable companies, entrepreneurs who fielded mostly prevention questions went on to raise an average of 2.3 million in aggregate funds, about 7 times less than the $16.8 million raised on average by entrepreneurs who were asked mostly promotion questions. So it's not double, it's 7 times so in fact, for every additional prevention question asked of an entrepreneur, the startup raised a staggering $3.8 million less on average. So, yeah, and they said we also noticed that the majority of entrepreneurs, 85%, responded to questions in a manner that matched the question's orientation. So a promotion question begets a promotion answer, and a prevention question begets a prevention answer. And this pattern of behaviour perpetuates a cycle of bias in the Q&A process that aggravates the funding disparity. So if someone starts off asking you preventative questions, it sets you on a trajectory of feeling like you have to defend your position and come out sort of fighting. Whereas if you're asked promotion questions, you're there, talking about the positive aspects, the vision, all the goals and milestones that you have. So when it says here, it's so interesting. When it comes to venture funding, entrepreneurs need to convince prospective investors of their startup's home run potential. It's not enough to simply demonstrate that they're unlikely to lose investors' money. So, yeah, I think what fascinated you and I about this article is simply the way you frame a question, which has so many flow-on effects into other areas of life. The one coming to my mind is parenting.
Yes.
Mm.
Even just this week, I've noticed a few posts on Facebook, dreaded Facebook. I've noticed, a couple of people have posted asking questions about how many of the women that they know have self-funded their business. And as you can imagine, the majority of them do. And to bring this article back into terms that, the average person can understand, people like you and I, because we didn't go and get venture capitalism to fund our businesses.
Yeah.
We weren't looking for millions in startup funds. But essentially, we had to have the conversations with our partners to access the funds that were in the joint bank account to start the business. And I would like people to think about whether when they entered that conversation about, I want to start a business and I'm going to need to take some of the money that we've got in the bank out to do this, did your partner ask promotion questions or prevention questions? And I'm guessing I know the answer to that already.
You know what the answer is to that, and I all the clients I've worked with, the questions from their husbands or partners have been prevention questions. It's how long is it going to take you to hit break even? How are you going to, um, what are you going to do to, um, what is it? What are you going to do? Um, it's usually around how long is it going to take you to contribute to the household? So it's sort of this unspoken pressure that, yeah, fine, you can have a go at starting your own business, but when are you going to, how long is it going to take until you start contributing? Which automatically puts you in that defensive position. And I do know that the impacts of those questioning that all I know is that the clients I work with, the female ones that are having to defend their position, it does set them on a trajectory of pressure and feeling that the need to prove themselves, and then failure when it's taking a feeling of failure when they feel it's not happening as quickly as it should, and then having to justify again to their husband. So the ongoing effects of those prevention questions are serious.
Absolutely. Let's flip the script for a minute here. Let's see if we can think about and consider where the men are coming from. Because there is a reason that they're tackling these conversations in this way. So I'm wondering if we can have a bit of compassion for the men just for a minute and think about their perspective on this. That they're out working and usually the breadwinner. So are they wrong or are they right to be questioning when the money's going to come back into the bank?
Definitely not wrong to question that. And I mean, if our husbands did the same thing and said, I'm going to go start a business, we'd probably be asking the same questions, right? We'd be saying, oh, that's great, honey, but when are we going to be able to pay the bills? And so I don't, they're well within their rights to do it. I have noticed a shift in my husband over the years. Since business has been doing well and he's seen evidence that I know what I'm doing and I'm growing and it's actually working, so that has shifted the way he talks to me about my business, and he's a lot more encouraging, and the questions he asks are more positive focused, and that in turn has a positive effect on me. So I do know firsthand, like those first years of having to justify the big money that both you and I invested in a business venture, and the state it sort of puts you in having to justify and defend that position and prove to yourself and the others that that was a worthy investment. And so it definitely has an impact. The style of questioning has an impact, and I don't think it's anyone's fault. I think it's more a matter of us becoming mindful about how the questions we ask impact someone, not just that one question, but the ongoing trajectory of that question.
Yes.
That's what struck me about the article, that these questions had ongoing impacts because it put people in either an optimistic or a pessimistic mindset.
So let me ask you this now, Kate. Back in the day when we were looking at investing in this business venture that we both invested into, did you ever consider going externally to fund that? Or
No.
was your automatic response to go to your husband and say, I want to access these funds?
I briefly considered a bank loan. I mean, venture capitalism was not an option at that time because no one's going to invest in a one-person service-based business. That venture capitalists are looking for scalable product businesses, aren't they, generally, where there's a huge market, rapid growth, and I was never going to be that thing. I just wanted to make really good money doing what I love, which is what you and I both do. So venture capitalism or capital funding was never really an option. However, I did consider bank funding and went and even spoke to a business broker at one a loan broker, and really considered going down that path. But the interest was just horrendous. Like you'd be stuck with huge payments. And so it just didn't make any sense. You know, it made more sense to borrow from our savings interest free and refund the money when, you know, when you made it back. So yeah, it was just never an option in my world. How about you?
I actually didn't think of it. I only because, yeah, and this is where we're getting into a bit of money mindset here. Only
Mm.
because I know my husband's aversion to borrowing. Now, having said that, the business is the company is mine. It is my name on it.
Mm.
The finance would have been in a company name. So technically speaking, he would have been totally removed from that financial situation.
Mm.
He would have had arm's length from that. But no, I didn't think of it.
Mm.
And I don't think that my reaction and your reaction to just go and say, hey, how much money can I take out of the bank to start a business? I don't think that's an unusual concept for most women, because I know my husband and I, when we first started our company 18 years ago, and we went to the bank to get credit cards, you know, because there were people out on the road and they needed to buy fuel and things like that. And at the time, people had to pay for things themselves and then bring the receipt in, and we'd reimburse them. So it made sense for people to be able to have a credit card.
Yeah.
And the bank refused. They wouldn't even entertain the discussion of allowing us to have any credit cards in the business.
Mm.
And that dumbfounded me. And because I'm stubborn, I did take my banking to, you know, outside of the big four, and did source other ways of doing business and other ways of financing things. But I just thought, wow, where is the support for small business? Can't even get like a $1,000 credit card.
Isn't it crazy? Yeah. And that was, I mean, that was basically what it came down to with my business. I could either go the path of a bank loan, but then you had to have all this information to prove that you were going to be able to pay the loan back. But I was starting out, so I couldn't give them that information. So that wasn't a bank loan wasn't an option. And the business loan through the brokers, they were just so expensive that just became cost prohibitive as well. So yeah, you're stuck between a rock and a hard place starting out, you know, as a small service business. You've really got to bootstrap it and self-fund it, which is the hard slog. But that's why you and I are passionate about getting people through to the other side, isn't it? Because it's possible. It's just you've got to be committed and you've got to really be in love with the work. Otherwise, you wouldn't keep going for so long for such little return in those early years, in the valley of death, as we always refer to. And that's why making sure you're passionate about your business, it's just so critical, because at the moment the going gets tough. And I had this conversation with a client starting out last week. She had a business idea and it sounded okay, but I said to her, this is a really tough market that you're entering, that you want to enter. It was actually in the recruitment space. And I said, I know this is a very tough, competitive, cutthroat market. Do you love recruitment? Like, is that what you would absolutely, if you had no other choice in the world, like if that was the one thing you could do, is that what you would do? She's like, no, I just thought it would be a good money-making exercise.
Oh, dear.
She said, I just thought it would be a good market to get started in. I said, look, you've just drop anything that you're not 100% passionate about, because it's going to be a hard slog no matter which way. But the passion's that's what keeps you going through the tough times. So if you don't have the passion, stop now, yeah.
Definitely. And I learned that, I've learned that lesson the hard way, because goodness me, I'd have to sit here and really think carefully to remember all the businesses that I've started and then crash and burn, because for that exact reason, I can just make some money out of this. The trouble is, that you do lose motivation very quickly when when your sole motivation is money. And I think that's been evident for a lot of people where, you know, you've got this hobby and a couple of people say, oh, you should do this. You're really good at it, you know. And it was fine as a hobby, but when it's your bread and butter and when it's, you know, the thing that's got to feed your soul, if it's all about money, you got to starve.
Yeah, it is interesting because I have met a few people over my time that genuinely get lit up by the prospect of making money. Like that really excites them. Like, and so they're into things like Amazon selling and or digital products on Amazon, all these different things where to me that seems like the most boring thing to be spending your time on, but it's the adrenaline rush they get of making sales on something like Amazon that keeps them going. So they're not interested in the ebooks at all. In fact, they're pretty average from what I've seen. They're very average. they're just, but they're going for mass market turnover, and they've got their fingers in all different pies. So there'll be ebooks and digital products here, and then it'll be fishing lines over there, or it's anything that they can see there's an opportunity to make money, and that excites them. And all I can think is, oh my God, that just, I understand that making money is exciting, and you know, but to be doing that mundane stuff to get it, that's just not me. I can't, you know.
Yeah, I do know, but do you know what? That's their passion. That's what's
Yeah,
driving them.
and it's perfect. Yeah, no, not knocking them. I
Yeah,
guess I'm
no,
just saying.
perfectly. No, I get that. Perfectly suited to that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think there is a difference, and we know this now through all the, you know, personality testing. We know there's all different types of people out there, and some, which are the ones you and I love to work with, are very purpose driven. It's about the difference they're making, the impact. That's what lights them up. So that takes precedence over any sort of money, which can be a problem because it means, you know, you really have to coach them on the monetization side of things and making sure they value their time sufficiently and all that stuff. But yeah, at the end of the day, being successful in business, it does come down to what are the things that light you up, isn't it? And if that's what you focus on, then eventually, yeah, you will get there. Mm.
Yeah. I like to put money in perspective, particularly when it comes to investing in a business, because just for argument's sake, you use $5,000 as a startup fund for a
Mm.
service-based business, you know. It's for some people that's an awful lot of money, for some people it's not. But
Mm.
for example, if you take that $5,000 and it takes you 3 years to break even and start generating profit, then when you break that down, how much money have you really invested per week in your business that, I don't know, you could have spent if you were shopping or gone on a holiday or, you know, like you could have spent it on things that you're never going to get anything back out of.
Mm.
So I think sometimes we have to put the investment into perspective.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, and the power of that compound effect is just huge, isn't it? Just put and it's something I'm trying to teach my kids at the moment because they whinge when they only get $5 pocket money a week for doing all their chores. And I say to them, but you need to learn the power of 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5, you know, and just putting that little bit away consistently ends up in a big amount. It's yeah, it's but like you say, the return on an investment in your business can be really significant versus we happily spend, yeah, what, you know, thousands on the latest gadget or whatever. So it is, yeah, perspective is important for sure. Mm.
Yeah, it's all how you justify it in your mind, isn't it?
Yeah, 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 interesting. And so in the back to the article about why males and females or the different questions, males and females get asked different questions by venture capitalists. What they're suggesting that women learn to do, or anyone. So I mean, this applies to men as well. But if you're asked a prevention question, you've got to consciously know how to flip the script and turn your answer into a promotion one. And that then changes the whole trajectory of questioning. So,
Yes.
yeah, it's interesting that this is definitely a skill women need to learn to use, obviously, because the stats show that we're at the brunt of these preventative questions. But if you can learn as a business owner how to flip the script and make it into a positive promotion type answer, that then changes the entire trajectory, apparently. So that's what they're saying is the disrupting rather than, so yeah, previously they're like, okay, well, the answer is more female investors. We need more female investors. That's going to solve everything. Didn't solve the problem at all. It just the same gender bias kept getting perpetuated. But what can change it, and it'll be interesting to see if this actually works, but now they're saying the only way you can disrupt this pattern is for anyone who's pitching to learn how to flip a prevention question into a promotion one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shall we have a go at flipping some of these that are in the table?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
So let's go back to the first one. So the prevention question, or do you want both? Do you want to have a try at this? I've already got an answer in there. So the promotion question was, how do you want to acquire customers? Mm-hmm. The prevention question is, how many daily and monthly active users do you have? Mm. So how are you going to flip that over, Kate?
How would you flip that? So how many do you have?
How many daily and monthly active users do you have?
I think the subtle way, it depends if you want to answer the question or like, do you have to answer the question or not? Or do you simply go into our target is to have X monthly users by 2025 and like turn it into a goal focused one rather than what you have now. And then don't give them an option to intervene, but just say, and this is how we're going to do it. We're going to do this, 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 this. And so we're very confident we can hit those targets,
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. You definitely want to focus on the forward thinking rather than, where you are now or where you've been.
Yeah. Yeah,
for
absolutely.
Sure. Okay. So the income statements. So the promotion question was, how do you plan to monetize this? And the prevention question was, how long will it take you to break even?
So to turn that into prevention, again, I wouldn't answer. You possibly could say, well, according to our cash flow forecast, it's going to take 2 years to break even. The next, see, if you answer the question, you're putting yourself in a defensive position. So I would probably, if they say, how long is it going to take you to break even? I'd say, well, according to our cash flow forecast, our first milestone is X dollars by this date, break even by this date, double revenue, triple revenue, and start to. So keep forcing the conversation onto the goals and the vision that you have, rather than just answering the question.
Yeah, I think I would even take that one step further and to say, well, the forecast, like you say, the cash flow forecast says that break even is here, but that's only for one revenue stream. By that point, we anticipate we'll have multiple revenue streams. So there'll be various break even points for all of those different streams. I don't know. I would throw them off, throw a scatter bomb in there so they don't know where to look.
Yeah, and keep it forward focused on the milestones that the positive side. Yeah.
Multiple revenue streams suggest quite significant growth and opportunities for expansion.
Yeah.
Now, this horrible question that we discussed before, the promotion question, do you think your target market is a growing one? And the prevention question, is it a defensible business wherein other people can't come in the space to take share?
I would personally answer that question. I would say if you can show me one business in the world that has a defensible position that no competitors can come in and share, then I'll gladly do that for you. But what we have done instead is taken a realistic stance. We know there's going to be competitors in the market, as there are in every single business in the world, and we've got a strategy to outdo them. I mean, I'd be getting on my condescension chair at that point if someone asked me that, and just put them back in their box and say, show me a business that has what you're asking me. Doesn't exist.
Yeah.
But then,
I think I'd point them.
Sorry, I was just going to say, you don't want to get them on the back foot, and be very tactful, in how you answer that. But I would definitely let them know that that question is ridiculous in a very tactful way, and let them know that we have a plan to position ourselves to outdo our competitors in that ways. Yeah. What do you think, Sam?
Well, I think I'd throw the question back at them and saying, are you asking if I'm a unicorn, or are you asking if I can be unique in a crowded industry?
Mm.
Because they're two very different things.
I like that. Yeah.
And I'd say, I think that I'm quite unique in the market in, these ways, X, Y, and Z.
Yeah. Because by saying, like, what was it? The question is, so is it a defensible business wherein other people can't come in the space to take share? Yeah. Yes.
Another way to answer that would be I have more concern for the people that are already established in this industry because I'm going to dominate it. Here I come.
I'm going to scream out.
In every industry, there has to be an industry leader. So that will be me.
Mm-hmm. And then back it up with, because we intend to do it this way, we're positioning ourselves this way that's different and offers this competitive advantage. Yeah. I mean, when you're answering these questions as an entrepreneur, you need to have such good understanding of your approach, of the finances, everything, to be able to, the key is, like we're saying, not defend it, but flip it to, these are all the reasons why this idea is going to work. And so on that, I'd love to turn this towards parenting then, Sam, because I know a lot of our audience has children. But and I notice this a lot, different way my husband and I parent. I tend to be promotion focused with my questions to my kids, and he tends to be prevention focused. And the results are fascinating, because my kids come to me so often being so frustrated with their dad about, they just feel they have to defend themselves all the time, or it's never good enough, or it's, whereas the questions I really mindfully, and I think it's because you and I are coaches, right? We obviously have learned these skills because we need to, as part of our profession, but you realize that not everyone has been through that training, so they're not mindful of the type of questions you ask and the impact it has on someone. So I'm always really mindful as a mother to ask open questions and not closed questions, because I know that's a coaching 101 thing, isn't it? You need to program yourself to learn how to ask open-ended questions, never closed questions. And that's what fascinated me about that article. That question to men is your market a growing one? Yes or no? That's just a closed question. Of course, the answer is yes. But so I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. And another tactic I've tried to teach my husband is, he always uses the word why. Why did you do that? Why did you leave your thing on the ground? Why? And I have tried to say to him, the word why is a prevention question. It actually puts you in a defensive position, because you're having to defend why you did that action, and it automatically puts you in a defensive position. Whereas if you could say to them, what happened there that made you do that? It's a totally different. And I've said to my husband, please don't use the word why. Can you, every time you want to say why, change it to what? What was going on for you at that time when this happened? And then it gives them, and I've seen it play out, where they then start telling you, oh, well, my friend was doing this, and then he did that, and then I ended up doing blah. Whereas when you ask why, they just shut down, and they're like, oh, they don't want to talk to you, because they feel like they have to justify themselves again.
Yeah, that's right. As soon as you ask why, they've got to delve into the psychology behind what happened. And
they don't know
they're
why.
kids. They're not like that. Like you said, they can respond with what happened,
Yes.
but why is a bit beyond most kids.
Absolutely. And they're never going to be able to answer, and they don't want to answer it because they feel like they're being told off and pushed in a corner. So it's just interesting. That filters through into this article.
Mm.
It's like the promotion questions are what? What are you doing? What are you, and then the prevention questions are more why they're defensive based. It's like, yeah, they're automatically on the back foot defending their position. And have you got examples of that in parenting styles with you and your husband?
Oh, my goodness. I think my husband and I are on polar opposite ends of the scale when it comes to parenting. Particularly with the interesting personalities of the kids, because no two are the same, as we know. Okay. They're all very individual people. But I can tell you, in my house the other night, my son plays Xbox, and I don't know anybody whose son plays Xbox that doesn't get really heated and frustrated when they play.
Yeah, my sons do, yeah.
It's a very common thing. Like all the other mums that I talk to, we all got the same story about their kids' explosive temper on Xbox or your PlayStation, or just when they're gaming.
Yeah.
So I certainly handle those eruptions very differently to my husband. So my husband's answer to resolving that is to come in and say, get off. And he's actually quite explosive in response to an explosive situation. So he's like, get off, you're not behaving properly, get off, turn it off, you're not going on it anymore again today. Now, because he's at work so much, most of the time it's me that has to go in and handle, any sort because now I listen for it. When I hear him start to get elevated, I go in there and I'm like, hey, buddy, maybe take a 5-minute break, because I can tell you're starting to get really frustrated on there. And he will start ranting at me. He's like, oh, stupid thing, the internet's lagging, or they keep picking on me and they're all shooting me and all of that sort of stuff.
So familiar.
But the point of having that conversation is that because I've engaged him in that conversation, it's giving his brain a break from the game for a minute, and he vents, and then I can reason with him. And then I can say, oh, well, maybe just take a break from that game and come out here with me, or, go outside or play a different game, anything to just break that tension. And it's such a different approach. But when I go in there, I always say to him, if it happens again, you're going to have to get off. So in his mind, he's like, okay, mum comes in, we talk about it, and I get a warning. And then if I do it again, I know I have to get off. So the other night, my husband comes in and he's, get off there, rah, 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 all huff and puff. And because my son then turns around and he says, well, that's not the rules. The rules are I get a warning first, So you can imagine my husband's head exploded. Well, that's not the way mum does it.
And the way mum does it is much more effective.
Yes. So needless to say, I'm sitting on the couch. My ears are burning because I can hear this exchange happening. And then my husband's storming through the house, and you can imagine I get the sideways look as he's going past the couch.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because you've learned those ways of working with someone's emotional state rather than coming in hammer and tongs, which is totally ineffective. We know it doesn't work.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, and it shuts a kid down and makes them rebel more. And it's the same with adults. If you come in, really aggressive like that, it shuts people down. And so you've got to find ways in the heat of moments to diffuse conflict and open people up. That's the key. And I think that's in every aspect of life, whether it's working with clients, customers, investors, kids. It's all about the power of how you ask a question or how you respond to someone. Does it either shut them down or does it open them up and diffuse the negative tension? And it actually all comes down to mindfulness in the moment, doesn't it? Like being aware of how what you're saying is impacting the other person.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. When all 5 of mine were younger, oh my goodness, my tolerance level wasn't what it is now because there are a lot more personalities to deal with in the house.
Yeah.
But what I do know is 100% for sure, I know, is that 2 people coming in defensively will never resolve anything.
Yeah.
It just serves to aggravate, and it's not going to get you the outcome that you want.
No. And interestingly, when it comes to capital investment, the more defensive the questions get, the $3.8 million less for every defensive question asked. That's just insane.
I know.
The long-term ongoing impacts of how you ask a question, that just blew my mind. And I think it's been a valuable conversation today.
Yes. Yeah. And I think we should send a link out too, because the
Put it in the show
Harvard
notes.
Business Review has an online diagnostic tool for you to do an assessment to see whether you're a promotion-focused person or a prevention-focused person. So I think that would be really cool for people to do.
That is an excellent plan. Yes, there's a link in the Harvard Business Review article, isn't there, to that? So we'll put it in the show notes and you can go check it out and start being more mindful of how you ask questions and see the impacts it has.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for this awesome conversation today, Sam. We will be back again very soon. Bye, everyone. Bye for now.
Bye.